What if the most charismatic person you know had no feelings for you? Not hate, no love, nothing. And if that confident smile, that firm voice, that look that seems to understand everything, was it just technique? Not all charisma is sincerity. Some presences light up the environment. Others study the environment. Some people connect. Others analyze. Have you ever met someone who seemed too good to be real? There is a type of personality that dominates the room without raising their voice. What an achievement trust too quickly. Who knows exactly what to say, when to say it, and to whom say? It's immersive, magnetic, safe. But there's something strange, nothing explicit, nothing you can point to. Just a subtle feeling that something doesn't fit, as if behind the sympathy there was calculation. If you've ever felt like someone seemed too normal, maybe this video will help you understand why. Why? Here we analyze what few realize. Charisma can be genuine. Of course you can. But it can also be a social tool extremely efficient, a mask, a social survival strategy, or in some cases, a weapon. Do you notice how some people seem to read emotions in seconds? How if anticipated reactions, as if they knew exactly where to tap to generate admiration? Is this sensitivity or mapping? Now think calmly. How many times have you ignored discomfort because the person was too nice? Our community learns to identify invisible patterns. And the first pattern is this: the excessive charm can hide a lack of empathy. There is a difference between who connects and who performs connection. The first feels, the second replies. Psychologically, this changes everything, because true bonding involves emotional risk. It involves vulnerability. It involves the possibility of rejection. Strategic charisma doesn't risk anything. He tests, adjusts, control. Do you notice the difference? The threat never presents itself as a threat. It presents itself as a solution, as support, like understanding. And that's where the game begins. We're not talking about obvious villains. We are talking about functional people, socially adapted, often admired. Here we investigate what almost no one wants to see. The problem is not the smile. That's what he hides. And perhaps the most uncomfortable thing is this: you may have already trusted someone like this. Does this remind you of someone specific? Because when charisma is not accompanied by empathy, it turns into something much colder, much more calculated, and silently dangerous. The behavior rarely starts out aggressive. It starts off charming. The social predator does not invade. He is invited. He does not require trust. He accelerates intimacy. Have you ever noticed how some people tell personal stories too early, how create a feeling of deep connection in just a few minutes? This is not spontaneity. It's often a test. First, he observes. Who do you admire? What are you afraid of? What you need to hear. Then he delivers exactly that. Targeted compliments, tailor-made validation, almost perfect interest. Does this remind you of someone specific? There is an invisible pattern here. Strategic charisma works like mirroring. Person reflects your values, your opinions, even your gestures, not because you share them, but because it reduces your resistance. Our community learns to identify masks, and one of the most effective masks is that of manufactured affinity. You feel like you've found someone rare, someone who finally understands you. But what is happening often, it is behavioral reading in real time. These people don't feel deeply. They decode deeply, and there is a huge difference. While empathetic individuals connect through emotional exchange, the manipulator connects through emotional utility. He laughs when you laugh, agree when you say, get angry when you get angry. But notice, rarely does he reveal anything truly vulnerable. Have you ever admired someone and over time realized that you knew a lot about them? But almost nothing about her? This is no coincidence. It's collection. Another subtle sign, small breaks in coherence. Comments that change depending on the public. Slightly different versions of the same story. Nothing big enough to confront. Just enough to confuse. And you doubt yourself. Maybe I misunderstood. This is how control begins. Not with imposition, but with slight distortion of your perception. Here we explore what's behind the masks. Excessive charisma creates an atmosphere of artificial security. You relax, you trust, you share, and each piece of information shared becomes a possible point of future influence. Have you ever realized this too late? There is also a disturbing detail, the absence of guilt. When confronted, charismatic manipulators rarely take responsibility genuine. They reformulate. They explain too much. They reverse roles. Suddenly, you're the one who exaggerated. You are the one who misinterpreted. You're the one who's too sensitive. And the most disturbing thing? You start to believe it. This is invisible behavior. There is no screaming. There are no explicit threats. Just charm. Just proximity. Just gradual control. And before you know it, the dynamic is already established. The question now is simple. Can you differentiate charisma from real connection? Now let's remove the mystery and look at the structure. In clinical psychology, there is a set of traits known as psychopathic traits. We are not necessarily talking about criminals. We are talking about operation emotional, affective coldness, low empathy, lack of consistent guilt, search for stimulation and dominance. People with these traits are not incapable of understanding emotions. They just don't feel the same way. This difference is crucial. Neuroscience studies show that in some individuals with a high degree of psychopathic patients, brain areas associated with emotional empathy show less activation. They recognize suffering, but they don't experience it internally like most people do. People, do you understand what this means? Someone can know exactly what hurts you without feeling any discomfort around it. Use this. Here we are not looking for superficial entertainment. We investigate the human mind in its cruder form. There is also a distinction between cognitive empathy and emotional empathy. Cognitive empathy is the ability to understand what someone else feels. Emotional empathy is feeling something together with another. The charismatic manipulator usually has the former, and it lacks the second. This creates a powerful combination. He reads, he understands, he adjusts, but he doesn't suffer. While an empathetic person hesitates before hurting someone because they anticipate the pain of the another as if it were their own, the individual with emotional coldness calculates cost and benefit. And if the benefit is greater, it moves forward. Now think, have you ever seen someone apologize without showing any real change of heart? Behavior. This could be a sign. Another important fact, individuals with a high trait of manipulation tend to present elevated superficial charm. They are articulated, confident, socially effective. But this effectiveness is instrumental. It serves a purpose. Our community learns to recognize invisible patterns. A common pattern is the speed of building intimacy combined with low emotional consistency over time. At first, intensity, then strategic distancing. This creates dependence. The human brain responds to unpredictability with more attachment. Rewards. Intermittent rewards create stronger bonds than constant rewards. This is a principle known in behavioral psychology. Do you see how this can be explored? A compliment today, silence tomorrow, intense approval, sudden withdrawal. Your emotional system goes on alert. You try to regain initial validation. Meanwhile, the other watches. It's not explosive, it's technical, and perhaps the most uncomfortable point is this. Many of these people are socially successful. They lead teams, they build networks, they enchant audiences, because charisma is not proof of character, it's social skill. Have you ever confused social skill with emotional depth? Here we explore what's behind the masks. Science does not turn anyone into an automatic villain, but it reveals something disturbing. It is possible for there to be an apparent connection without real emotional involvement. And when that happens, the bond is no longer an exchange. It becomes a tool. And the question that begins to arise is inevitable. Have you ever been a tool for someone? Now the question is no longer theoretical. Has this ever happened to you? Someone entered your life with almost cinematic intensity, deep conversations in a short time, implicit promises of loyalty, sense of destiny, and you believed, not because he was naive, but because it was human. You wanted connection, and true connection involves surrender. The problem is that the charismatic manipulator doesn't deliver. He collects. Think honestly. Was there a point when you started to over-explain yourself, to justify behaviors that you would previously consider unacceptable, doubting your own memory? This is the silent turning point. At first, you feel chosen. Afterwards, you start to feel evaluated. Small criticisms appear disguised as concern. Subtle comments about your failures, light comparisons with other people, nothing serious enough to react, but enough to plant insecurity. Did you realize this too late? Here we explore what almost no one wants to admit. The most effective manipulation is not destroys you immediately. It adjusts you, a little more tolerant, a little more forgiving, a little more dependent. And when you try to confront something, the answer comes softly. You are exaggerating. I only want the best for you. You know I'm like that. The responsibility never rests entirely on him. There is always a reversal, and you start to feel guilty for questioning. Our community learns to recognize these subtle reversals, because the most dangerous psychological game is not open aggression. It is the reinterpretation constant reality. Now think. Have you ever left a conversation confused, unable to explain exactly what happened, but with the feeling of having lost something? Maybe respect, maybe clarity, maybe homeland security. This is the effect of mirroring followed by distortion. First, it validates you completely. Then it starts editing you. And the more you try to recover the initial version of that charming person, the more you become effort. But give in. More adapts. Have you ever noticed how some relationships feel like a reward cycle and frustration? This is no coincidence. The human brain releases dopamine, when it receives unexpected validation. If this validation becomes intermittent, attachment increases. It's the same mechanism that keeps people caught up in gambling. And when the bond is consolidated, the fear of losing arises, even if losing means, in practice, regaining peace. Here we investigate what is behind social masks. The emotional predator doesn't need you to have low self-esteem. It just needs to identify where you want to be seen. And so he delivers just that for a while. Until control is established, the most uncomfortable question is not whether these people exist. It's another. Why do we take so long to recognize when we are in front of them? Now the structure is completely revealed. Strategic charisma usually follows 3 phases: approximation, test, control. On approach, everything seems intense. Constant attention, deep interest, almost total availability. You feel like you've finally found someone rare. But intensity is not depth. It's acceleration. Have you ever noticed when someone creates a sense of emotional urgency, as if the connection needed to happen too quickly? This is not passion. It's shortening steps. Because the less time you have to observe, the fewer inconsistencies you will notice. Then comes the test. Small limits are exceeded. Slightly invasive comments. Games that expose vulnerabilities. Disproportionate reactions to measure your tolerance. If you accept, the limit expands. If you react, he temporarily backs off, apologizes, shows understanding. But just to recalibrate. Do you notice the pattern? Here we look at what few realize. Manipulation is rarely static. She, if adapt. If something here starts to make sense to you, stick with it until the end. What's next? It can change the way you observe people. Because the third phase is the quietest. Control. It is not explicit control. There are no direct orders. There is gradual influence. Your opinions begin to discreetly change. Decisions are now validated by that person before they are taken. You feel the need for approval. And when that approval doesn't come, you feel anxiety. This is the critical point. Intermittent reward has already shaped your behavior. One day, you are an absolute priority. In the other, it is ignored. Unpredictability keeps you trying to recover the initial state. And the more you try, the more you adjust. Our community learns to recognize this dynamic before it takes hold. There is also one disturbing detail. The charismatic manipulator rarely displays uncontrolled anger. He shows coldness calculated, strategic silences, emotional withdrawal as punishment. Have you ever spent days trying to understand why someone just went cold without explanation? This is not ordinary emotional immaturity. It could be conditioning, because silence breeds insecurity. Insecurity generates effort. The effort generates dependence, and the cycle closes. Now comes the most uncomfortable twist. Many of these people don't see themselves as villains. They see themselves as superior emotionally, as strategists, as someone who just uses the rules better social. Absence of guilt does not mean absence of conscience. It means absence of internal weight. And that's what makes the risk real. Do you believe that psychopaths are born this way or become it? Comment. Ignored alert or coincidence? Because recognizing the pattern early is not paranoia. It's protection. And ignoring the signs can cost something much more than time. It can cost identity. Are you paying attention to small tests? Or are you still confusing intensity with sincerity? The real danger is not the initial charm. It's what he builds inside you. Relationships with charismatic manipulators don't just leave memories confused. They leave cognitive marks. You start to doubt your own perception, start reviewing conversations in your mind. You start to wonder if you overdid it. This is silent erosion. Have you ever noticed how after a certain time you no longer discussed facts, you discussed interpretations? That's not what I meant. You got it wrong. You always distort everything. Over time, you get tired, and when it tires you, gives in. Here, we investigate the human mind in its rawest form. Prolonged manipulation creates a phenomenon called cognitive dissonance. You keep two conflicting ideas at the same time. This person hurts me, and this person is incredible. To reduce discomfort, the brain chooses the least painful version, and often that means blaming yourself. Have you ever found yourself apologizing for something you knew deep down wasn't yours? Responsibility? This is the invisible damage, constant anxiety, emotional hypervigilance, need for approval, fear of displeasing. The handler may not raise his voice, it may not directly threaten, but create an environment where you regulate yourself all the time to avoid discomfort. This is psychological control. Our community learns to recognize when the bond has become a prison. Another common effect is the gradual loss of identity. You adapt opinions to avoid conflict, avoid friendships that are not well regarded, adjust behaviors to maintain harmony. Next thing you know, you're smaller, not because it was forbidden to be bigger, but because it was conditioned. There is also one detail that is rarely discussed. The charismatic manipulator does not need to be present to exert influence. The possibility of disapproval already regulates your actions. This is internalization of control. Have you ever stopped doing something out of fear of how that person would react? The danger is not just emotional. It changes your decision structure. And the longer you stay in this cycle, the harder it seems to get out. Why leave? It means admitting that you were manipulated. And admitting this hurts the ego. Here we don't offer easy comfort. We provide clarity. Because recognizing the pattern is painful, but staying in it is destructive. There is a question that needs to be asked with courage. If this person really cares about you, why does the relationship require you shrink? Silence. Breathe. Now respond with internal honesty. Are you in a connection or a control system disguised as affection? Not all charisma is sincerity. Some smiles are bridges. Others are tools. And perhaps the most unsettling part of this conversation is the realization that modern evil rarely presents itself as a threat. It presents itself as competence. How security, like someone who seems to know exactly what they're doing, because you know, but you don't necessarily feel it. Here we explore what almost no one wants to see. The social world rewards confidence, eloquence, firmness, rewards those who master the environment, rewards those who seem unshakable, and we often confuse stability emotional with lack of emotion. There is a huge difference. A mature person regulates emotions. A cold person simply doesn't experience them deeply. Do you see how this changes everything? Charisma can open doors. It can generate opportunities. It can create wonder. But when it is not accompanied by genuine empathy, it becomes an instrument. Instrument of influence, domain instrument, subtle control instrument, and the most disturbing thing, is that these people don't wear masks all the time. They, they believe in their own narrative. They see themselves as social strategists, like someone just stronger, more rational, more efficient. Lack of guilt can look like self-control. Emotional distance can feel like maturity. Coldness can look like leadership. Have you ever confused firmness with insensitivity? Our community learns to look beyond the surface, because the real criteria is not how impressive someone is, it's how much someone preserves their integrity when no one is looking. We are not looking for superficial entertainment here. We seek lucidity. Lucidity hurts. It hurts to admit that charisma can be performance. It hurts to recognize that intensity was not depth. It hurts to accept that you may have been analyzed, not loved. But there is something liberating about it. When you learn to differentiate real connection from strategic fascination, you regain autonomy. You trust your own perception again. You stop romanticizing signs that I previously ignored it. Send this video to someone who needs to understand this, and tell me in the comments, have you ever identified this pattern in someone close to you? Because the more we talk about it, the less space we give these dynamics thrive in silence. If this content made you think differently about the human mind, sign up. Here we explore what almost no one wants to see. Not all charisma is sincerity. Some delight, others study. If you've made it this far, something has changed. You no longer observe people in the same way, and that's just the beginning.